The blizzard had been raging for 3 days straight across the Alaskan wilderness when Marcus Chen heard the scratching at his cabin door. At first, he thought it might be a bear or wolves seeking shelter from the brutal storm that had temperatures dropping to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Living alone in this remote research station 50 miles from the nearest settlement, Marcus had grown accustomed to wildlife visitors during harsh weather. But this scratching was different. It came in patterns, almost like Morse code, desperate and rhythmic. Marcus set down his steaming cup of coffee and approached the reinforced door cautiously. Through the security monitor, he could barely make out a figure collapsed against his doorframe, covered in what looked like ice crystals and snow. "Hello?" Marcus called through the intercom. "Are you okay out there?" A weak voice responded in heavily accented English. "Please, help, dying from cold." Marcus grabbed his thermal scanner and pointed it at the door. The readings were impossible. The figure outside registered a core body temperature of barely 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Any human should be dead at that temperature, yet somehow this person was still conscious and speaking. Without hesitation, Marcus disengaged the security locks and opened the door. What he saw made him stumble backward in shock. The figure was definitely humanoid, but clearly not human. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer even beneath the layer of frost covering her body. Her hair was white as fresh snow, and her eyes glowed with an inner amber light. Most striking were the elongated, pointed ears and the series of gill-like slits along her neck that fluttered weakly with each labored breath. "Please," she whispered again, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "I mean no harm. My ship crashed in storm. Need warmth or I will die." Marcus's scientific mind raced even as his human compassion took over. This was clearly an extraterrestrial being, something that should have been impossible according to everything humanity knew about the galaxy. Yet here she was, freezing to death on his doorstep. "Come in quickly," Marcus said, stepping aside and gesturing her into the warm cabin. "We need to get your body temperature up." The alien woman stumbled inside, her movements sluggish and uncoordinated from the extreme cold. Marcus could see that despite her obviously non-human physiology, she was suffering from severe hypothermia. Ice had formed in her white hair, and her skin had taken on an alarming grayish tint around the edges. "My name is Zara," she managed to say through chattering teeth that Marcus noticed were slightly pointed. Was Huntress of the Corvani fleet. Ship hit by electromagnetic storm. Systems failed. Crashed 3 days ago." Marcus quickly guided her to the fireplace, where flames crackled warmly. He grabbed every blanket and thermal covering he could find, wrapping them around Zara's tall frame. Her shivering was violent, her entire body convulsing as he tried to warm her up. "A huntress?" Marcus asked, though he was more focused on keeping her alive than satisfying his curiosity. "You hunt humans?" Zara's glowing eyes met his, and for a moment he saw something like shame flash across her alien features. "Hunt? Yes. Corvani are apex predators across 7 systems. Humans were our newest prey species we discovered. I came to study your kind before the full fleet arrives." The implications of her words hit Marcus like a physical blow, but he pushed his fear aside. Right now, this being was dying, and his conscience wouldn't let him abandon anyone to freeze to death, regardless of their intentions. Marcus rushed to his medical supplies and found a thermal regulation device he used for treating hypothermia in his research subjects. "I'm going to attach some heating elements to help raise your core temperature," he explained, showing her the small electronic patches. "They're designed for humans, but maybe they'll work for you too." Zara nodded weakly, too exhausted to resist. As Marcus carefully placed the heating patches on her arms and torso, he couldn't help but notice that her skin felt unlike anything he'd ever touched. It was smooth but had a subtle scaled texture, and despite the cold, there was an underlying strength in her muscular frame that suggested incredible physical power. "Why?" Zara asked suddenly, her voice stronger as the heating elements began to take effect. "Why help me? I told you I came here to hunt your species. Most intelligent beings would have left me to die." Marcus paused in his ministrations, considering her question. "Because you're hurt and afraid," he said simply. "I'm a scientist, but before that I'm human. We don't let people die when we can help them, even if they might be our enemies." Something shifted in Zara's glowing amber eyes at his words. "Your species? Is this typical behavior? This compassion for enemies?" "For humans?" "Yeah, mostly," Marcus replied, adjusting the blankets around her. "We're not perfect, but most of us believe in helping others when they're in trouble. It's just who we are." Zara was quiet for a long moment, studying Marcus's face as if seeing him clearly for the first time. The color was slowly returning to her blue-tinted skin, and her violent shivering had subsided to occasional tremors. "In my culture," she said eventually, "showing mercy to prey is considered weakness. The strong survive by eliminating the weak. That is the Corvani way. But you are physically smaller than me, weaker in combat capability. Yet you risk yourself to save an enemy. This confuses everything I was taught about your species." Marcus brought her a cup of hot tea, noting that her hands were steady enough now to hold it without spilling. "Maybe what you were taught was wrong," he suggested gently. "Maybe humans aren't the easy prey your people think we are." Zara sipped the tea and winced slightly at the temperature, but continued drinking. "The Corvani High Command believes humans are primitive, barely evolved beyond basic tool use. Your technology is crude compared to ours, your physical capabilities limited. You have no natural weapons, no enhanced senses, no ability to survive in harsh environments without artificial aids." "That's all true," Marcus admitted with a slight smile. "We're not the strongest or fastest or toughest species in the universe, I'm sure. But we have other qualities." "Such as?" Marcus gestured around the cabin. "I live alone in one of the harshest environments on my planet, conducting research that might benefit people I'll never meet. You crashed in a blizzard that would kill most Earth creatures, but I had the tools and knowledge to keep you alive. Humans adapt, Zara. We survive through cooperation, innovation, and yes, compassion." Zara's ears twitched slightly, a gesture Marcus was beginning to recognize as concentration. "You speak as if these traits are advantages in survival." "They are," Marcus said firmly. "Humans have conquered every environment on our planet, not through brute force, but through working together and never giving up. We turned a hostile world into our home through stubbornness and ingenuity." As the night wore on, Zara's condition continued to improve. Her skin regained its natural blue coloration, and her movements became more fluid and controlled. Marcus prepared a simple meal, unsure what an alien metabolism might require, but figuring that basic nutrients couldn't hurt. "Your food," Zara said after tentatively tasting the soup Marcus had made. "It's unlike anything in Corvani cuisine, but pleasant, warming from the inside." "That's the idea," Marcus replied. "Comfort food, something to make you feel better when you're hurt or scared." Zara paused with the spoon halfway to her mouth. "You have food specifically designed for emotional comfort?" "Of course, don't you? Corvani eat for sustenance and strength. The concept of food for emotional well-being is foreign." Marcus shook his head in amazement. "No wonder your people don't understand humans. Food, art, music, stories. Half of human culture is about making each other feel less alone in the universe." That night, Marcus gave Zara his bed and took the couch, despite her protests that she could rest on the floor. As he lay listening to the storm still raging outside, he could hear her moving restlessly. muttering in what he assumed was her native language. Around midnight, Marcus was awakened by a low, melodic sound. He crept toward the bedroom and found Zara sitting by the window, looking out at the swirling snow. She was humming something hauntingly beautiful, a tune that seemed to capture both sorrow and hope. "Couldn't sleep either?" Marcus asked softly. Zara turned, and in the dim light he could see that her eyes were glistening with what looked like tears. "I was singing a death song," she said. "Among my people, when a warrior faces death with honor, we sing to celebrate their courage." "Whose death were you singing about?" "Mine," Zara replied simply. "Not physical death, but the death of everything I believed about myself, about my people, about the universe. 3 days ago, I was Zara of the Corvani, elite huntress, bringer of death to inferior species. Tonight I am confused." Marcus sat down beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "Change can feel like death, I suppose, but it can also be rebirth." Zara looked at him with those incredible amber eyes. "How do you remain so calm? You know what I am, what I came here to do. Aren't you afraid?" "Terrified," Marcus admitted with a laugh, "but also fascinated." "You're the first proof that Earth isn't alone in the universe. From a scientific standpoint, you're the discovery of a lifetime." "And from a human standpoint?" Marcus considered his words carefully. "From a human standpoint, you're someone who was in trouble and needed help. Everything else, we'll figure out as we go." Zara was quiet for several minutes, watching the storm. Finally, she spoke again. "The Corvani fleet will come looking for me when this weather clears. They will expect me to have gathered intelligence on human weaknesses, identified optimal hunting grounds, confirmed that your species poses no threat to our expansion." "And what will you tell them?" Zara's hands clenched into fists in her lap. "I don't know. Everything I've observed contradicts our assumptions about humanity. You should be easy prey. Yet you've survived and thrived in conditions that would challenge even Corvani warriors. You should fear and hate me, yet you've shown me more kindness than I've ever experienced from my own people." The storm continued to rage outside, but inside the cabin something fundamental was shifting. Marcus could see it in the way Zara held herself, the uncertainty that had replaced her earlier predatory confidence. "There's something else," Zara said suddenly. "Something about your species that the Corvani High Command doesn't know, something I didn't understand until tonight." "What's that?" Zara turned to face him fully, her expression serious. "Humans don't just survive. You make others want to survive, too. In 3 days of freezing in that wreckage, thinking of nothing but my mission and my duty to my people, I felt nothing but cold determination. But here, in a few hours of your company, I felt hope, warmth, that has nothing to do with temperature. I don't even have words for these emotions in my language." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm outside. If this was how one human affected one alien in a single night, what would happen when Zara's people encountered human civilization in force? The implications were staggering, both hopeful and terrifying. As dawn approached, the storm finally began to weaken. Through the windows, they could see the first gray light filtering through the thinning clouds. Zara's rescue would likely come soon, and with it, decisions that could determine the fate of both their species. The morning brought an eerie silence as the blizzard finally exhausted itself. Marcus woke to find Zara standing at the window, her tall frame silhouetted against the brilliant white landscape. She had shed the blankets during the night, and he could see that her alien physiology had fully recovered from the hypothermia. Her blue skin now had a healthy, luminescent quality, and her movements were fluid and purposeful. "They're coming," she said without turning around. Marcus joined her at the window and squinted at the sky. At first he saw nothing but blue sky and scattered clouds, but then he caught it. a glint of metal reflecting sunlight, growing larger by the second. "Your people?" "A Corvani search and retrieval craft," Zara confirmed. "They've been scanning for my biosignature since the storm cleared. We have perhaps 10 minutes before they arrive." Marcus felt his heart rate spike. In less than 10 minutes, he would come face to face with an alien species that viewed humans as prey. Everything would change, not just for him, but potentially for all of humanity. "What happens now?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Zara turned to face him, and Marcus was struck by the conflict he saw in her amber eyes. "Standard protocol would be for me to signal my status, report my findings, and request extraction. The team will expect intelligence on human capabilities, weaknesses, and behavioral patterns." "And what will you tell them?" "That is the question that has kept me awake," Zara said. "Everything I've learned here contradicts Corvani intelligence about your species. We expected primitive beings driven by fear and aggression. Instead, I found someone who risked his own safety to save an enemy." The craft was visible now, a sleek metallic vessel that moved with impossible grace through the atmosphere. It was clearly advanced technology, far beyond anything humans had developed. Marcus estimated its length at about 40 meters, with no visible propulsion system, yet somehow maintaining perfect stability in flight. "There's something you need to understand about my people," Zara continued, her voice growing urgent. "Corvani society is built on strength and dominance. We've conquered 7 star systems not through diplomacy or cooperation, but through superior force and ruthless efficiency. Mercy is seen as weakness, compassion as a genetic flaw to be eliminated." "But you showed me mercy," Marcus pointed out. "You could have killed me and taken what you needed." "That's exactly the problem," Zara said, her hands clenching and unclenching nervously. "What I did last night, allowing you to help me, accepting your kindness. By Corvani standards, I've been compromised. If my superiors discover I've developed what they would call emotional contamination from contact with humans—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Marcus could see the fear in her alien features. The Corvani ship settled silently in the clearing beside Marcus's cabin, its landing disturbing barely a snowflake. A section of the hull simply dissolved, revealing an opening from which 3 figures emerged. Even at a distance, Marcus could see they were the same species as Zara, but different in important ways. Their movements were more predatory, their posture more aggressive. They wore form-fitting armor that seemed to shift and shimmer like liquid metal, and each carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. "The tall one is Commander Crix, my immediate superior," Zara whispered. "The others are Hunters Vex and Thyra, all veteran warriors with dozens of successful conquests." The 3 aliens approached the cabin with military precision, their weapons ready but not overtly threatening. Commander Crix raised a device that projected Zara's voice speaking in her alien language. "He's asking for a status report," Zara translated. "I need to respond now, or they'll assume I'm compromised and take aggressive action." Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. "Then tell them the truth. All of it." Zara stared at him. "You don't understand. If I report that humans showed me kindness, that you have emotional and social capabilities we didn't expect, they'll see you as a potential threat rather than simple prey. The invasion timeline could be accelerated. And if you lie, they'll proceed with the original plan. Systematic hunting and harvesting of human populations, starting with isolated communities and working toward population centers." Marcus felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. Either way, humanity was in danger, but at least honesty offered the possibility of a different outcome. "Zara," he said quietly, "what do you think is the right choice?" For a moment, the alien huntress looked utterly lost. I don't know. 3 days ago, the answer would have been obvious. I would report what was expected, complete my mission, and take pride in facilitating another successful conquest. But now, Commander Crix's voice crackled through the translator again, this time with obvious impatience. I have to go out there, Zara said. Standard debriefing procedure. They'll scan me for injuries, check for contamination, and expect a full tactical assessment. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not, Zara said firmly. Humans in close proximity to Corvani warriors. It would trigger their predatory instincts. You'd be dead before you could speak. Then we're at an impasse, Marcus said, because I won't hide in here while you face this alone. You saved my planet's future by crashing here instead of completing your original mission. The least I can do is stand beside you when you make the hardest choice of your life. Zara looked at him with an expression that might have been admiration. You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both, Marcus admitted with a grin. But that's also very human. Together they stepped outside into the crisp morning air. The three Corvani warriors immediately tensed at the sight of Marcus, their weapons humming to active status. Commander Crix barked something in their language that was clearly a challenge. He wants to know why I allowed prey to approach, Zara said, her voice steady despite the obvious danger. He's questioning whether I've been compromised. Marcus noticed that Zara straightened to her full height, her demeanor shifting from the vulnerable refugee he'd helped to something far more dangerous. When she spoke to her commander, her voice carried authority and confidence. What did you tell him? Marcus asked when she paused. The truth, Zara replied. I told them that this human represents something unprecedented in our experience and that our invasion plans are based on fundamentally flawed assumptions. Commander Crix's response was immediate and violent. He snarled something while pointing his weapon directly at Marcus. The other two hunters began to circle, their movements predatory and coordinated. He says I've clearly been infected by human weakness, Zara translated. He's ordering Vex and Thyra to eliminate you as a demonstration of proper Corvani values. And what's your response to that? To Marcus's amazement, Zara stepped between him and the approaching warriors. When she spoke again, her voice carried a tone he hadn't heard before, command authority that made even these veteran hunters pause. I told them that any warrior who attacks this human will answer to me personally, she said. I invoked the right of discovery, claiming you as my research subject under direct protection of the Huntress Code. Commander Crix's weapon never wavered, but Marcus could see uncertainty in his predatory stance. The other two hunters looked between their commander and Zara, clearly caught in a conflict between orders and protocol. The right of discovery? Marcus asked. An ancient law that allows a huntress to claim exclusive research rights over a particularly unique specimen, Zara explained. It hasn't been invoked in over a century, but it's still binding under Corvani military law. The standoff continued for several tense minutes, alien words flying back and forth with increasing hostility. Marcus couldn't understand the language, but he could read body language well enough to know they were moments away from violence. Finally, Commander Crix lowered his weapon slightly and spoke in a more measured tone. He's agreed to a formal evaluation, Zara said, relief evident in her voice. But there are conditions. You must demonstrate the qualities I've claimed make humans unique, or forfeit your life immediately. What kind of demonstration? That, said Commander Crix in heavily accented but understandable English, is for us to determine. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine as the alien commander studied him with predatory intensity. This was clearly a being used to dominance, to being the apex predator in every situation. The way he looked at Marcus suggested he was seeing nothing more than an interesting animal. Your subordinate claims, Commander Crix continued, that humans possess qualities that make them more than simple prey. We have agreed to test this assertion before proceeding with pacification protocols. Pacification protocols? The systematic elimination of your species' capacity for resistance, Hunter Vex interjected, her voice carrying cold amusement. Standard procedure for newly discovered sentient species. Marcus looked at Zara, who gave him an almost imperceptible nod. Whatever test they had in mind, she believed he could pass it. He just hoped her faith wasn't misplaced. I understand, Marcus said, addressing Commander Crix directly. What would you have me do? The Corvani commander smiled, revealing those predatory pointed teeth. We shall see how your much-praised human adaptability serves you when facing true Corvani strength. Thyra, prepare the combat assessment. Hunter Thyra stepped forward, her armor shifting and changing until it formed a more aggressive configuration. Energy coursed along her weapons, and Marcus realized with growing dread that they expected him to fight. Combat assessment? He asked weakly. Physical confrontation between species representatives, Commander Crix explained with obvious satisfaction. If humans are truly more than prey, you should be able to demonstrate basic survival capabilities against a Corvani warrior. Marcus looked at Thyra, who stood nearly a foot taller than him and was clearly built for violence. Her alien physiology showed enhanced muscle development, natural weapons in the form of retractable claws, and reflexes that made her earlier movements look like liquid lightning. This isn't exactly a fair fight, Marcus pointed out. Precisely the point, Commander Crix replied. Prey species typically realize their inferiority when faced with Corvani superiority. If you truly represent something unique, prove it. As Thyra began to circle him with predatory grace, Marcus realized that everything, humanity's future, Zara's life, and his own survival, depended on the next few minutes. He had no enhanced physiology, no natural weapons, no combat training beyond basic self-defense. All he had was his human intelligence and the desperate hope that it would be enough. The test was about to begin, and failure meant death for him and invasion for his species. Hunter Thyra moved with fluid precision as she circled Marcus, her alien features twisted in what might have been amusement. Her retractable claws extended with a soft metallic sound, each one gleaming like polished steel. Marcus could feel his heart hammering against his ribs as he turned to keep her in sight. Standard combat assessment, Commander Crix announced with cold formality. Unarmed confrontation until surrender, incapacitation, or death. The human may utilize any natural capabilities available to his species. And if I refuse to fight? Marcus asked, backing toward his cabin. Then you demonstrate that humans are indeed simple prey, and we proceed with immediate pacification protocols, Vex replied, her weapon humming to full power. Your choice is simple. Fight and possibly prove your worth, or surrender and confirm your species' weakness. Marcus glanced at Zara, whose amber eyes held a mixture of fear and desperate hope. She believed in something about humanity that even she couldn't fully articulate, but Marcus wasn't sure he could live up to whatever that was. Thyra struck without warning, moving faster than Marcus's eyes could track. He threw himself sideways, feeling her claws whistle past his ear close enough to part his hair. He rolled in the snow and came up running, using the cabin's structure to break her line of attack. Predictable prey response, Thyra called out in her alien language, which Zara automatically translated. Flight when confronted with superior force. She says you're behaving exactly like prey, Zara said urgently. But Marcus, remember what you told me about human adaptation? Don't fight her strength. Use what makes humans different. Marcus's mind raced as he dodged another lightning-fast swipe. Thyra was stronger, faster, and better armed than him in every conceivable way. Direct confrontation would be suicide. But humans hadn't conquered Earth through brute force. They'd done it through intelligence, tools, and the ability to think beyond the immediate problem. As Thyra cornered him against the cabin wall, Marcus grabbed a handful of snow and threw it directly into her face. The unexpected move didn't hurt her, but it disrupted her vision long enough for him to duck under her next attack and roll away. Interesting, Commander Crix observed. The human attempts to use environmental advantages. That's right, Marcus said, breathing hard as he put distance between himself and Thyra. Humans don't rely on natural weapons. We make our own advantages. Marcus grabbed a fallen tree branch, wielding it like a staff to keep Thyra at bay. She snarled in frustration as he used the branch's reach to prevent her from getting close enough to use her claws effectively. But the branch was temporary at best. Thyra adapted quickly, grabbing the other end and using her superior strength to yank Marcus off balance. He released his grip and stumbled backward, narrowly avoiding her follow-up strike. Your crude tools won't save you, Thyra taunted. Accept your inferiority and die with what little honor your species possesses. Actually, Marcus said, backing toward the equipment shed behind his cabin, tools are exactly what will save me. The thing about humans is that we never stop innovating. He reached the shed and grabbed the first useful item he could find, a container of industrial solvent he used for cleaning research equipment. As Thyra charged him again, Marcus popped the cap and splashed the liquid across the snow between them. Chemical warfare? Commander Crix asked, with what might have been respect. Chemistry, Marcus corrected. The solvent has a freezing point well below water. Watch what happens. Thyra's next step landed squarely in the treated snow, and her foot immediately broke through what had become a slippery, unstable surface. She stumbled, her perfect balance disrupted, and Marcus seized the opportunity to grab a coil of climbing rope from the shed. Humans are persistence hunters, Marcus explained as he began fashioning a simple lasso. We don't give up, and we learn from every encounter. Thyra's faster and stronger, but she's also predictable. Thyra recovered her footing and snarled in anger, but Marcus could see that the other Corvani were watching with new interest. He wasn't winning the fight in any conventional sense, but he wasn't losing either. More importantly, he was demonstrating something they hadn't expected. Your species uses tools and tactics rather than natural ability, Commander Crix observed. This suggests intelligence, but intelligence alone is insufficient for survival against Corvani superiority. Intelligence plus adaptability plus refusal to quit, Marcus corrected, dodging another attack while working to position himself better. Watch this. Marcus had noticed something during their fight that Thyra apparently hadn't. The alien's enhanced reflexes and speed came at a cost. She was breathing harder than when they'd started, and her movements, while still incredibly fast, lacked the fluid precision they'd had initially. Thyra's physiology is optimized for short, intense bursts of activity, Marcus called out to the watching Corvani. But humans evolved for endurance. We can keep going long after other species exhaust themselves. To prove his point, Marcus began a deliberate strategy of hit-and-run tactics. He used the cabin, shed, and surrounding trees to break up Thyra's attacks, forcing her to constantly change direction and reacquire targets. Each time she committed to a charge, he was already moving to a new position. After 10 minutes of this, Thyra was visibly tiring. Her breathing had become labored, and her reactions were a fraction slower than before. Marcus, meanwhile, was running on adrenaline and the peculiar human ability to push through exhaustion when survival was at stake. Impossible, Hunter Vex whispered in her own language, which Zara translated. She says it's impossible for prey to outlast a Corvani warrior. Not prey, Marcus said firmly. Tool users, problem solvers, survivors. Commander Crix held up a hand, stopping Thyra mid-attack. The exhausted warrior looked confused but obeyed immediately. Enough, the commander said, his voice carrying new undertones that Marcus couldn't quite interpret. Hunter Thyra, report your assessment. Thyra straightened despite her obvious fatigue. The human... demonstrates capabilities not indicated in our intelligence reports. Physical inferiority compensated by tactical thinking and environmental manipulation. Endurance characteristics exceed predicted parameters. And your recommendation for species classification? There was a long pause before Thyra answered. Reclassification from simple prey to potential threat requires further evaluation. Marcus felt a surge of hope, but Commander Crix wasn't finished. One human's performance is insufficient data for species-wide assessment, the commander stated. However, this individual has demonstrated qualities worthy of further study. He turned his predatory gaze directly on Marcus. Human, you have earned the right to speak before final judgment is rendered. What would you have us know about your species? Marcus realized this was it, the moment that could determine humanity's fate. Everything he said now would influence whether the Corvani saw humans as worthy of respect or simply as more challenging prey. Commander Crix, Marcus began, trying to keep his voice steady. What you've seen today isn't special. I'm not humanity's greatest warrior or smartest scientist. I'm just an ordinary human doing what we always do when faced with impossible odds. We adapt, we persist, and we never give up. Continue. Your people have conquered 7 star systems through superior force. That's impressive. But humans conquered an entire planet that was actively trying to kill us. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, predators, natural disasters. Earth threw everything it had at humanity. And we not only survived, but thrived. Marcus gestured toward his research station. I live alone in one of the most hostile environments on my planet. Not because I have to, but because I choose to. Because understanding our world, pushing the boundaries of knowledge, exploring the impossible, that's what humans do. Commander Crix's alien features showed something that might have been contemplation. You claim your species possesses qualities that make them formidable despite physical limitations. Not just formidable, Marcus said, feeling momentum building. Unique. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our weapons or our technology. It's the fact that when faced with a superior enemy, we don't just fight back. We figure out how to make ourselves better. Explain. Marcus looked at Zara, who gave him an encouraging nod. Every challenge humanity has ever faced has made us stronger. We turned the discovery of fire into agriculture, then industry, then space travel. We learned to cooperate with former enemies when facing bigger threats. We never accept that something is impossible. We just haven't figured it out yet. And if we were to invade your world? Then you'd face 5 billion humans who would each respond exactly like I did today. They'd adapt, they'd improvise, they'd learn from every encounter, and they'd never stop fighting until they found a way to win. Commander Crix was quiet for a long moment, studying Marcus with those predatory eyes. Finally, he spoke. Hunter Zara, your assessment of this species. Zara stepped forward, her voice carrying new authority. Commander, my recommendation is immediate reclassification of humans from prey species to potential strategic allies. The words hit Marcus like a thunderbolt. Allies? He hadn't even dared hope for survival, let alone alliance. Explain your reasoning, Commander Crix demanded. Humans possess qualities that complement Corvani's strengths, Zara said, her confidence growing with each word. Where we rely on force, they employ innovation. Where we seek dominance, they offer cooperation. A species that can turn a hostile world into their home and show compassion to their enemies represents opportunities we've never encountered. You suggest alliance over conquest? I suggest, Zara said carefully, that enslaving or destroying a species capable of what we've witnessed today would be the greatest strategic error in Corvani history. Commander Crix exchanged glances with his subordinates, communicating in rapid bursts of their alien language. Marcus caught fragments that Zara translated under her breath. words like unprecedented, recalculation, and high command directive. Finally, the commander turned back to Marcus. Human Marcus Chen, you have presented evidence that requires evaluation by the Corvani High Command. Your species' fate will be determined by powers beyond my authority. But, Marcus sensed there was more coming. But, Commander Crix continued, I am authorized to establish preliminary contact protocols with species showing exceptional characteristics. Hunter Zara will remain on your world as official liaison to study human capabilities further. Her reports will influence the final decision regarding your species' future. Marcus felt relief flooding through him, followed immediately by new concerns. And the invasion fleet? We'll maintain current position while we conduct extended evaluation, Commander Crix replied. This delay will require significant justification to our superiors, but what we have witnessed today suggests that standard conquest protocols may be inadequate for your species. As the Corvani prepared to depart, Zara approached Marcus one final time. Thank you, she said quietly, for saving my life, for showing me what your species is truly capable of, and for proving that there are alternatives to conquest. Thank you for giving us a chance, Marcus replied, and for choosing to see us as more than prey. The evaluation period will be extensive, Zara warned. Months, possibly years. I'll need to document human capabilities across multiple environments and social situations. The Corvani High Command will scrutinize every detail. Then I guess we'd better make sure they see the best of humanity, Marcus said with a smile. Think you're up for that challenge? Zara's amber eyes gleamed with something that looked very much like excitement. Marcus Chen, I'm beginning to understand that spending time with humans means facing challenges I never imagined, and I find myself looking forward to every one of them. As the Corvani ship lifted silently into the sky, Marcus realized that humanity's first contact with alien life hadn't ended in conquest or destruction, but in something far more precious, understanding. The freezing alien huntress who had pleaded for shelter had become their species' greatest advocate, and what she did next would indeed shape the future of two civilizations. The storm had passed, but the real adventure was just beginning.